everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Big thank you to our sponsor, Celebrity Coaches, providing transportation to the biggest names in entertainment. Thanks to Celebrity, we're hitting the road to talk to the pros that make concerts and live events happen. Today, we're on the streets of Nashville, Tennessee. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, please leave us a comment. Don't forget to hit the like, share, and subscribe. Today, we have a veteran in the music and touring world. He has an endless resume as a tour manager, audio engineer, and production manager. Currently, he is the Director of Technical Services for the Opry Entertainment Group and Ryman Hospitality Properties. He oversees all aspects of production for their numerous venues. These rooms include the Ryman Auditorium, the Grand Ole Opry House, and all of the OLE RED locations, Nashville and Gatlinburg, Tennessee, Tishomingo, Oklahoma, and Orlando, Florida. That wasn't enough. He also supports the production of the weekly broadcast of a little show called the Grand Ole Opry. Before all that, his decades of road experience as an audio engineer and tour manager include Little Big Town, Alan Jackson, Montgomery Gentry, Don Williams, Stanley Clark, Marcus Miller, and Victor Wooten, and also tour managed for a concert tour with the cast of the ABC series Nashville. From Louisville, Kentucky, and now in Nashville, Tennessee, he is Jeff Hatfield. Jeff, thanks for doing this.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Don. Thank you. Thank you for putting me in this uncomfortable position.
Well, thank you for coming and being uncomfortable with me.
No, I'm all about it, so it's all good.
So that's the thing is that you and I both, if we are in front of a microphone or in front of a camera, is typically that we're checking it for somebody else.
Exactly.
And so we're not used to this role. I'm still getting used to it, and I appreciate doing it. Since anything that has Grand Ole Opry or Opry associated with it, you're probably going to be involved if there's anything going on, whether it's in Nashville or these other venues or other ventures that the Opry has done in New York City and things like that. Tell me if I'm wrong or correct here for a lot of people outside the business. To me, the Grand Ole Opry is not a place, but it is a show, and it could happen in different places. Some
That's
people
correct.
call the Ryman the Grand Ole Opry. Some people call the Opry House the Grand Ole Opry, but it could happen in a tent if it had to. Am I on the right track?
You're right on the money there, Don. It's the oldest running, continuously running radio show. 95 years is the benchmark this year. So we started in the same year that WSM Radio started. So it was a partnership from the beginning.
Yeah.
Great thing to be a part of. It's an honor every day to come into work and get to work on this, which is what I would say a truly organic, authentic musical experience every week.
Well, and you are one of the more fortunate people in our business because you work for a company that revolves around live music and live audiences and has found a way to continue to operate and adapt it. And we'll get into more of that stuff. But before we talk about this operation and all of the stuff that you're doing now, let's go back to the tour that sort of brought you into this position now, and that was with the Nashville cast. A lot
That's
of people
correct.
Don't know about that.
Yes, that is correct. I got a call from Steve Buchanan, who at the time was president of Opry Entertainment Group. He asked me to put together a tour with him of the cast for that TV show called Nashville. And it was a great experience. It was about, it was all about music, and these actors were true musicians. They had a great band, but all of the vocalists, I think there were 7 principals out there on that trip. It was a great experience, but it was an eye-opening experience for me to sort of get a behind-the-scenes view of how this company operates, how Opry Entertainment Group operates, and to see some of the upper echelon of the company out there in the trenches with me, stamping passes and sealing envelopes and doing meet and greets and so forth was very impressive. It was a truly collaborative experience, and from the beginning, it just sort of set the tone for my experience with the company.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to start.
Absolutely. And so, about the show itself, that's a lot of one of the things that I think a lot of people don't know is that all of those actors were actually musicians and actually real singers.
Absolutely.
Like and they did a pretty good job. And so I know I wasn't, I think I was on a show with another artist for one of those performances later on. Might have been when Tony Stevens was out. I'm not sure.
Yes.
But hugely popular show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got the celebrity of it from the TV show, and then their performances as well. So it was a pretty cool thing.
It was great for our city.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it was a real shot in the arm in terms of tourism, for sure.
Absolutely. The show itself, absolutely. And so from there, that's when you started working with the Opry Group in that, because they were producing that. Yeah,
and it was just a singular project. I was a hired gun to do the tour managing for that, put it together, and my predecessor in my current role, John Meyer, was out on that tour, and he was sort of the de facto stage manager for that little run. So it was kind of interesting to see a glimpse into his world and. How he was doing his job from the bus, when he was out on tour. Which was not easy for him.
Right, as opposed to being here on a stable situation at the Opry.
It did kind of tip me off to some of what the nature of the gig is, though. But he was awesome. It was great. He really, basically, he called me when he decided to retire and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about retiring. Would you be interested in this role? And if so, then maybe apply." So I did, and it kind of worked out in the long run. So
he had been here quite a long time before he retired.
Yeah, he was brought in, I believe, '94 when the Ryman got renovated and relaunched. So that was where he got his start there with the company.
And so when you're following somebody that's been in the company that long, doing that job for that long, what was that like? And were you able to bring in your team, bring in some people and build a new crew, or how did that work?
Well, actually, what I inherited when I took on the job was in very good shape, and I had a tremendous team, great talent. So it's like, if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing. What did occur right when I came on board was a tremendous spurt of growth. And so we had multiple initiatives that we were building, and our design and construction crew was busy making plans for future developments and so forth. So I sort of came in right at the beginning stages of that. And but to your point, no, I did not bring a lot of my crew in. Tony Stevens, who I brought in on the next Nashville tour. I suggested that Steve hire him, and I ended up hiring Tony. A year or two later, and Tony and I crossed paths because Tony had been with Alan Jackson for a good while and was really the standard. Tony was like the legend when I came on with Don. It was
absolutely.
Even the form of the itinerary was structured around Tony's style, and so nobody wanted to deviate from that. So
right.
Of course, I had to adapt FileMaker templates direct so I could replicate Tony's template and all of that. It was fun, but I was really fortunate to get Tony on board here eventually.
And so then the OLE Reds, I don't think I realized that there was so many of them. And how did that come about? And how is that in your world in terms of managing the ins and outs of those venues?
Well, it's like everything. It started out with the concept and started small. Actually, the first OLE RED that we launched, which was really Blake Shelton's concept that we embellished upon and built upon, and then took ownership of. We operate it. But the first one was in Tishomingo, Oklahoma, and that's his hometown, and he's really proud of his neighborhood there, and so we wanted to support him there, and we kicked it off with a big grand opening just over 3 years ago. It's pretty audacious. We put a giant SL250 in the middle of Main Street, big sound, lights, video. It's fun.
And so those venues in general, they're set up for the local to medium-sized acts to come in there and perform and stuff like that. But you have been able to pull off some of these national acts, and Blake comes and plays them occasionally, that sort of thing. So you do have to go into some logistics to kind of fit some of those things in there.
Yeah, there's always the Blake factor, and when Blake's coming, we adapt accordingly, but we always have to factor that in as an option. So
absolutely.
Part of the general concept that I was kind of pushing for was continuity from an artist perspective. If you got an artist that's playing the Opry on a Friday night and then they're going to go to OLE RED, you'd like to see the same backline. You'd like to see some of the same common denominators with audio. So that's been fun to try to keep that level of standard up.
Sure. Well, let's talk about the big elephant, the pandemic.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Let's talk about it.
So, going from what your normal schedule is, January, February, then March. Tell me about kind of stepping through what's normally happening, and then the initial reactions from you and your venues, and then adapting.
Well, like everyone else in this industry, we were all just terrified when we first heard about this, and I don't think anyone really knew how to respond immediately. It was a work in progress, but we did respond swiftly. I think it was the Friday the 13th of March. It was our last show with an audience before the shutdown, and we responded swiftly, and basically no audience from that point, and we really had to strip down the show. But then from that point, we right out of the get-go, how many people can you have in the venue?
To figure that out.
How many people on stage? There wasn't any established continuity about protocol at that time.
Right.
It was developing.
Yeah.
So we were very fortunate to have support from Vanderbilt Medical and CDC and the mayor's office, through that whole process of establishing how can we possibly keep this Saturday show going.
Well, plus, even without the audience, you still have several artists, lots of crew, and trying to keep everybody away from each other.
It was a sea change in terms of operation. Yeah. We had to really rethink, okay, you can't hang out talking about, microphone placement or anything. Yeah. You're wearing a mask. You have to remain distant. We're putting up barricades, temperature checks now in place. Yeah. It was a quick evolution to the next stage, which was try to keep this going but keep it safe. Yeah. And fortunately, we have had a good track record of that backstage, and obviously the artist's safety is first and foremost on our concern list. So that has been, some artists are very sensitive and don't want to play at all. Some are going to look into it and consider it. Others just say, I don't care. So we're concerned about those people, but it's all sort of worked out in the end, and we've been able to navigate this very delicate and difficult situation while our entire industry has been devastated. So we have been so incredibly fortunate to have had the resources to keep that show going on the air. From a technical perspective, we already had the infrastructure in place. We had the ability to adapt our safety protocols and, really strictly enforce it. Of course, we had no audience. We had no, this is just let's just keep it going. Yeah. The show's 95 years old. It's never missed a Saturday.
Well, I was going to say Saturday the 14th
Yeah.
You ended up, it was a
No audience.
No audience.
Yeah.
And so I was watching the ABC special the other night, Country Strong, and they were talking about how the Opry Saturday broadcast is not missed through all of the generations and all of the, cultural changes and everything else, wars and everything else. And this wasn't going to be any different.
Yeah, that's what we all said to each other, and it was like, no matter what it is, even if we have to take this show into a radio, only kind of studio background. But what's ironic is that it gave us the opportunity to really double down on how we deliver the show, and we were able to start broadcasting television at that time. We already had the infrastructure in place. We just hadn't pulled the trigger on live TV. So we were doing a post-produced weekly sort of best of show, and that was going great. And then this gave us the incentive to just say, okay, guys, we're going for it.
Yeah.
And from that point, we have kept the Saturday night show live.
Yeah.
Now, there is another element in our company, Martin Fisher's division of the company, who deals specifically with media production. They actually produce the live show for TV. So it's a little bit more, by the book, scripted, because we really have to hit, by the second on that show. But the Grand Ole Opry show by nature is an organic kind of plug and play, you fly by the seat of your pants musically, but it's real. It's totally authentic.
Absolutely.
And that's what we had to retain, is that kind of message.
Well, it's been great for that. I mean, it was originally a radio anyway. So, worst case scenario, you still got that.
Well, we haven't stopped.
Yeah, and it's even better than that. And I've also, it hasn't been necessarily in your world necessarily, but the award shows, the adaptation and stuff has been actually pretty good.
The ACM award show was an incredibly complex and difficult endeavor from a social distancing perspective, safety protocols. You can imagine a show with that scale, how it's executed, but they did such a tremendous job. They really took it seriously at every stage, even from the first walkthrough, and we all felt a great deal of confidence in knowing, hey, this is going to be all right.
Yeah.
Of course, no artists were hanging out. I mean, there was no artist backstage.
Yeah.
The artists came in, did their thing, and left.
Yeah.
They were out in the buses, you know. So it was very regimented in that sense, but extremely well organized, and we'd love to do it again.
Well, I think it came off really well, and you had involvement in the Ryman and the Opry House, and I know they used the Blackbird.
The Bluebird Cafe.
Bluebird Cafe.
Yeah.
Blackbird
Academy.
And I thought it was done really well, under the circumstances. But again, very complex behind the scenes that people have no idea.
Oh, immensely complex, and just being able to say to the artists that confidently that you're going to be safe.
Yeah.
This is that goes a long way.
Absolutely. Before all this, you have a pretty steady schedule of things to keep up with. How much, if anything, has anything lightened up? Just because you have a few less performances probably in some of these venues, but because of what we're talking about, the complexity of trying to adapt has probably kept you just as busy. I don't know that you haven't really had any time off like a lot of us have.
That is accurate. I mean, there was some time in there when I was in limbo like everyone else. What are we going to do? Yeah. But very quickly, we all had to think fast and do anything we could to stay busy. We did a lot of video shoots, tapings, photo shoots, anything we could to stay active, and all along you're really having to be mindful about safety protocols. So there's that, and then there's in the midst of all this we're dealing with our financial situation among all of our peers who are hit harder than we are in some ways. So it's tragic in that sense. The people that are dedicated to touring exclusively, they've got no other vehicle. Some of our primary vendors have just been devastated.
Yeah.
But we're just trying to keep the lights on and see the end.
Exactly.
Which seems to be getting better, even though our cases are rising now.
Yeah.
There are protocols in place that allow us to have a show now.
Right. Continue. Well, that's one of the things that we have a lot of industry people that can relate to what we're talking about, but there's also a lot of people outside of our industry that don't understand the enormity of the numbers of people behind the scenes that are, to some degree, their careers stripped away. Even the musicians have very limited places they can go and play. And things they can do, they can record and things like that. But to generate income is the difference. And then we also have production companies, your vendors and things like that are sitting on millions of dollars of equipment that isn't moving. And then even when you're talking about the Opry and those performances and things like that, right now, you started doing some live audiences, bringing in some live people back. When did
it was about a month and a half ago, I think.
Okay.
Started with a few hundred people at the Opry House and the same at the Ryman, and we've gotten up to a 25% capacity.
Okay.
At both venues.
Yeah, and so then there's a whole network of bringing people into the building. Then you have
absolutely.
concession lines and bathroom lines and all those things that everybody has to adapt to. But the bottom line is on a lot of that is that you're not getting a full house or near a full house. So the output of production and the output of performance and all those things are happening while there's very little coming in. And that's, again, to the financial end of things that a lot of people don't understand. But I applaud you and all the things that you're doing to make things keep going, because it gives, with these award shows and these performances, it gives us a little bit of hope. And I don't think it's going to turn around anytime soon, but it's gradually, hopefully we can beat the numbers at some point.
Absolutely. Well, like I've told my staff repeatedly, it's like we still act like everyone's infected.
Yeah.
We have to.
Yeah.
And I cannot say enough good things about my team.
Yeah.
Puts themselves in the front lines every time.
Yeah.
And they do an exceptional job. I mean, without COVID, of course, they're doing exceptional jobs. They've just doubled down.
Yeah, absolutely.
And such great attitudes through this whole period.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about them.
Absolutely.
I couldn't do anything,
right,
obviously, without that.
Well, I can speak from my production manager standpoint, coming in with different artists and things like that. Even before all this, it's always a stellar operation. Everything's going to get taken care of, and it's just, everybody knows where they're supposed to be. Everybody's got a job to do, and it's pretty straightforward. And you know that it's going to be a good day. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate that they're continuing that and staying safe and stuff. So bravo.
Oh, thank you.
Well, not to dwell on that stuff. Let's talk about how you got here and those sort of things. I wanted to ask you about how what turned your attention in the direction of this business. When we're kids, we run around saying that we want to be a fireman or an astronaut, but we don't usually say we want to be a sound engineer or a tour manager or production manager. So, what do you think was something that got your attention? Did you play an instrument? Were you
I
a musician?
did. I did actually. I started with trumpet when I was in, I think, 4th or 5th grade.
Yeah.
And played trumpet throughout middle school, high school, marching band, concert band, stage band.
Louisville,
Kentucky.
Yeah, you're originally from
it was
Ohio?
Bullitt County, actually,
Okay.
just south of
Okay.
Louisville. I was born in Ohio, just north of Cincinnati, but Louisville's my hometown.
I got you.
And love getting up to Louisville, but I, like so many people, you want to get into music and get into rock and roll, play guitar,
Yeah.
Grow your hair long, all that. So I went down that road and had a great time. Of course, the whole time I'm doing.
You 1 second. We're passing one of your venues right here.
Oh, there's
The
OLE
OLE
RED right there. and the
Go ahead.
lookout.
Go ahead. So you're wanting to get into rock and roll and
Yeah.
playing,
So, but the whole thing, I'll be honest with you. When I was playing music in band in high school, trumpet, I really was never serious. I did it for fun.
Yeah.
I did it just to
Yeah.
have fun.
Yeah.
And in high school in particular, play as loud as you can. Just had a killer trumpet section.
Yeah.
I was very proud of that. But I was not really serious. I didn't apply myself. I was just in it for a good time.
Yeah.
And really, I carried that attitude over when I grew my hair longer and I started playing guitar and bass and wanted to play in a band and just have a good time. And that's what it was about in my 19 or 18-year-old brain, which is still growing, hopefully. But I sort of had an epiphany when I was, I played with a bunch of people that were 20, 30 years older than me when I was that age, and sort of several moments of epiphanies where I'd be like, I really don't know if I want to end up like this, or, I've got something else in mind for the way this is going to turn out for me. So I quickly just started thinking, okay, is there some alternative course you can take? And the studio really became appealing to me. Hey, well, maybe, I really like all this music. I was really into music. You listen to music all the time, all genres. And, being a producer, a record producer, that sounds really appealing. I see this continuity between these producers and, they got their own sound and everything. That might be really interesting. You're a creative element with the group. You're directing the project. I never got into it.
Yeah.
I never started that.
Yeah.
And what kind of sidetracked me, not to digress too far, but
Sorry.
I was playing in a band. A buddy of mine was in a band, and he says, I know you're looking for some more work. Hey, why don't you go down to the local with me, go down to the Union Hall and fill out paperwork, and we'll go roll some carpet. He was in Stagehands Union there.
Okay.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get a card, but at least I'll be able to, do a little work. And so I did that for a little while, and that one of those gigs was a call to work for a sound company on setting up a sound system or several sound systems on an area called the Belvedere, which overlooks the river.
Yeah.
It was like a bluegrass festival or some kind of music festival in Louisville. And that was my first glimpse into what was possible on the live music side. This guy pulls up in a 1969 Ford truck, box truck, 12-foot truck, and got out like he was in the friggin' military, just, okay, guys, you, just directing everything, and knew exactly what he was doing. That one guy packed the truck, everything was loaded meticulously. It was an eye-opening experience for me.
Yeah.
And I quickly glommed onto him, and during that work, I asked him about a billion questions. I'm sure I ignored it or annoyed him.
Yeah.
But he accommodated me and obliged and answered my questions, and I just became totally fascinated by it.
Yeah.
The possibility of, okay, well, you could mix sound, maybe. Get into that.
Yeah.
I mean, the gear is what fascinated me. Looking at the speakers and how immaculately designed they were. And this guy, his name's Blake Harris. He's one of my mentors.
Yeah.
I ended up going to work for them, but the little backstory, I called them after the fact and I said, look, here's the deal. I was so impressed by everything.
Yeah.
I would work for you for free if you just teach me how to do this.
Yeah.
And his partner, David Portugal, my other mentor, answered the phone and he said, well, don't go that far, but why don't you show up at the Galt House and we'll work with us on setting up a PA. And that's how it began. So that was the start of my relationship with them.
That's what intrigued you and got you.
Oh, and it was fascinating. And just the concept of creating that sound, through sound reinforcement became a fascination to me. Yeah. I didn't care about anything else. I didn't care about like the glamour side of it or anything. I just cared about the sound. You set up this gear and you if you do everything right, you turn it on and it sounds great. I mean that's an end in itself, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, that's awesome. I think a lot of us that come from the audio background, it's that challenge, and it's still a little bit of creative, because, like you said, if you get everything right, if you get everything just right, it's already a challenge from the get-go, and then you can produce some really cool sounding stuff, and it sounds great, and you can affect that and change that. It's pretty cool. It's like running an audio console is like another instrument.
absolutely
me,
is. Yeah, absolutely is. But one of the side factors that came along with that whole experience was just my growth as a person. Just my interpersonal development. Blake and Dave were amazing influences in my personal life and my professional life, but they had such high standards. I mean, people would joke and call them, they were the uniformity police. They were absolutely strict about standards, how the gear looked, how it was packaged, the functionality, of course. So all of that had a tremendous impact on my approach. And ultimately, after being a grunt for several years and sweeping the floors and cleaning toilets and eventually learning how to do carpentry work, and then finally getting behind a Soundcraft 400 console or how about Tycho Brahe? Anybody remember that name? Tycho Brahe. And I was, like I said, I mean, that really, I can't say enough good things about those guys that helped me out when I was just starting and really kind of set the tone.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
They basically hired me on the spot, which I was blown away that they did, since I was willing to work for free. But March, I think it was March 1st, 1988.
Nice.
That was the day it all began.
Awesome.
And it was, from that point I worked, I think it was several years with them, and one of the former employees with Midwest Audio Group, who had since gone to work for Sound Image and moved out to San Diego, and then moved to Nashville, Rob Stokes. He called me up and said, "Hey, would you be interested in trying out for the Don Williams monitor position? Because I'm moving to front house." And I was completely blown away at the time, and just thought, Blake and Dave are not going to be happy about this. But I really, I tried to explain it to him and ended up doing it. Yeah. I got the job. And so that was the first artist that I worked for directly, was Don Williams.
It's not a shabby first artist to be working with.
Again, probably one of the best gigs I ever had. Yeah. I mean, no doubt. No drama. Yeah. It was just straight. I mean, as long as you knew what you were doing, Don sure did know what he wanted. Yeah. But as long as you could get them what they needed, the band was awesome. They were just like these seasoned studio veterans who were legends on their own. Yeah, exactly. And then they're supporting Don, and I was the luckiest man on the planet to have that gig. And again, I thank Rob for opening up that door for me, and of course Gus Lux, who was the tour manager, terrific.
So you were doing the monitor gig for Don Williams.
Yes.
And then now there was a break there that you were talking about. There was a break there where you did a couple other things.
I went back to work. Right. Actually, the guys that I used to work with at Midwest Audio, they had since formed another company. It was kind of a sound, lights, video, total production company that they were calling Axis. Okay. And so David would call me every now and then, and he'd go, "Jeffrey, when are you going to come back?" It's like, so he was hammering on me for a good while, and I finally ended up conceding, and he offered me a job to come back to work at Axis to oversee the audio department. And so that was like 1998, I think.
Now, did you have to leave? You were with Don at the time when they were calling you back, or were you?
I was actually. I took a brief moment, which is it's difficult to explain, but I'm just going to say it as a caveat. I took about 4 months of time after I had been studying on the side. I've decided, okay, I want to get into finance. Okay, I'm really interested in commodity futures and economics. So going to get my Series 3 license, which I did, and then I'm going to move to Chicago. Didn't know anybody. Sold my house, moved to Chicago. This is the end of, I think, 96 or 97 with Don. Moved to Chicago, got a job with a brokerage in Chicago at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and it basically was a cold calling broker.
Right.
You know, it was a really hard role, but great people up there, had a great experience. I just realized after about 4 months of it that it really wasn't for me. And so I was able to actually, with Don's blessing, come back without missing a beat to Don's next season and started back with him again. So, but that was quite a detour career.
And when you went back to Don, then you sort of got promoted.
Well, no, that was actually after I left Axis and came back to Don. I did come back to Don in 2002, and then somewhere along that way, I had an opportunity to throw my name in the hat to be tour manager, and I basically had to convince them that I could do it, and because I'd had no tour managing experience, but I did know Don's operation pretty well. So they thought about it for a little while, and his manager, Robert Pratt, and Don agreed. Yeah. And I can't say enough good things about, again, that opportunity again was like no other. You know, to be able to come right in. Absolutely. You know all of the environment, you know all the people. They're also welcoming. They were very supportive. So I did that until Don officially retired in 2006. Yeah. And then, of course, he came back again after like 5 years. But
just like everybody else, just like the Who and Kiss. Here comes Don Williams.
But it was a magical, for me. It was a magical moment of career development for me to sort of get my groove with tour managing, and you know, as you know, I mean, there's pitfalls out there. I mean, being a tour manager is not a glamour profession. No. And a lot of people that I talk to, hey, what do you do? I'm a tour manager. Oh, I'd love to do that. Sure.
I don't think you would.
How do you operate on 2 hours sleep? You know, are you okay with that?
Well, that's the thing is, you know, when we talk about the names of these artists and stuff like that, everybody thinks, oh, you must have so much fun. Well, there is fun, but I haven't slept in a couple months either. Right. You know.
Yeah, that's just it.
There's a lot to it.
It's like if you're paying attention, then you're always on. I mean,
there's...
And I try to explain it, you know, kind of like, I mean, I wouldn't say you have to be pessimistic, but you have to see things sort of through the eye of what's going to go wrong next.
Yeah. What can go wrong?
And is the glass half empty or half full? Well, it's half empty if you think something's going to fail any minute.
Well, you have to be prepared.
Yes.
That's the thing, is being prepared for the inevitable, or the possibility of the inevitable. Something doesn't go the way you planned it.
Exactly.
You know? And in this business, things change all the time. And the artist decides they want to do something different.
Exactly. Artists can be capricious at times, but artists aside, just Mother Nature.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you know, snow. You know, agents love to book shows in the fall in Canada. You know, and when do blizzards occur? October, November. So it's always a struggle against Mother Nature. You know, when you're dealing with these logistical elements.
Absolutely.
You know, now with COVID, I mean, I can't even imagine how difficult it is to, you know, work through customs, immigration challenges now. Of course, all the social distancing, safety protocols. That I just can't imagine how difficult it is.
And well, it's all about scheduling and making sure that you allow enough time for all those things.
Absolutely.
So in that, I was looking at your a lot of the tours and artists that you worked with. So you've had Don Williams as a single artist and Alan Jackson as well, but you've also had acts where you have four primary artists. You had Little Big Town, Montgomery Gentry, which is 2 artists. You had the SMV tour with Stanley Clark, Marcus Miller, and Victor Wooten, which I'm very jealous about. That you and I talked about that. I wish I could have taken that opportunity.
Well, that was John Nave, another tour manager who I befriended during one of my failed attempts at concert promotion, but I did promote a Pat Metheny trio show, and he was the tour manager, and got to know him through that experience. And I think he felt sorry for me and threw me a bone when I needed some work, and I'm so thankful for him for doing that, because it was a great experience. And
I'm sure.
Top-notch group. I mean, there's 3 separate managers, 3 separate artists, but great band, great players. It was just no drama. It was just lovely. And of course, the 3 of them were all, googly-eyed over each other because they were fans of each other. And it was just beautiful to witness.
Right. Well, so what can you say about, when you're handling more than one primary artist, and everybody's got different needs and different schedules and things like that? Have you had a lot of help?
Oh, absolutely. The manager first, is gonna help you out there, because they know the artist. They know the artist's needs, and sometimes the artists don't express themselves explicitly. They want you to already know it or expect you to know it somehow. But part of that is trying to get a level of trust with the artist, and so that they understand that you're there for them, and that your primary directive is all about their experience. And not just their experience going down the road and on stage, but your efforts matter in the long run for their financial well-being. So all of your due diligence when it comes to cutting costs, when it comes to tracking expenses and settling shows properly, all has a legacy effect on their future and their retirement. So I always was super sensitive to that. If an artist wanted to spend extravagantly on something, a few bottles of wine or something, that hey, maybe we're not going to drink all that wine or something. I'd always be the sort of the guy to try to talk them down from that expenditure. But it doesn't, that's not a popular position to be in always. So it's, the business manager is always your best friend, though, because they're on the same page, and the business manager, if they're doing their job, they're talking straight to the artist and telling them, hey, I know you want this, but this is what it's going to be.
Just think about the bottom line.
Yeah. Love business managers.
And you've done several roles where you've worn a couple of hats, and a lot of us do that, where you were mixing and production managing, or mixing and tour managing.
Not too many, actually. I haven't. The mixing and the production managing is a lot easier than mixing and tour managing.
Absolutely.
Whereas you're having to look after the artist,
right?
As you know, I mean that's a conflict of interest, almost. You know? And it takes the full buy-in of the artist. The artist has to understand and be supportive of that, and understand, hey, when I come off stage, you're not going to be standing there necessarily.
Yeah, it's a juggling act.
Yeah,
and
certainly.
I did a lot of that too. But then when I do one or the other, you can see how much each of those jobs can suffer when you have to do 2 or 3.
That's the pain. When you see how it could be and should be. Yeah. And yet, for budgetary reasons or whatever, you're stepping up.
Yeah. So when this opportunity came to take this position that you're in now, were you already in the mindset of something more stable rather than touring, because you were touring for years?
Quite honestly, I wasn't. I wasn't necessarily looking to get off the road. Yeah. And what I didn't mention was, after the Nashville tour, I also did some tour managing for Chip Eston and Claire Bowen, who were also in the TV show. So they did their own shows. Yeah. And that was a great experience as well. Man. It was Six Wire was the backing band for them. Yeah, yeah. Of course, those guys are
fantastic.
They're amazing. Yeah. But Chip and Claire were amazing to work with. I mean, just so kind, and so from when this came up, I was feeling pretty good about touring, and I never really had a problem with touring. I like touring.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just that when you have an opportunity present itself, you have to consider it, and this was a very unique opportunity. So that's what kind of drove it.
And has it been? You've been over 4 years now that you've been in this position. So was it an adjustment to not heading to the airport?
Absolutely was an adjustment. I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary, and it was quite an adjustment in that when you're out on the road, you're used to having to get things done immediately. You have to solve problems on the fly. Yeah. There's no waiting around.
Right,
if the bus is broken down and you got a gig to get to, you can only think about it so much before you have to act.
Yeah.
And so this position is different in that there's it's a corporate structure. So from an operational perspective, we have a vast team that's involved with all operations, and then of course there's the whole financial aspect of the company. This particular company is a REIT, real estate investment trust, Ryman Hospitality Properties. So I think it's about 85% of our business is in hotel properties.
Okay.
So the entertainment component is, it experiences the advantage of having that bigger company,
right.
As the support anchor.
Yeah.
From an HR perspective, all the other infrastructure of the corporate company. So that was an adjustment, coming up with, being able to have immediate results. I had to really ratchet it back, and I still to this day, I have to really pace myself.
Yeah.
And understand that not everyone works all the time,
right?
Like a tour is.
Yeah, when you're on tour, it doesn't matter what day of the week it is.
Yeah,
you got to make something happen on a Sunday,
Yeah.
And so not to is there times, is there opportunities in this schedule where somebody you could go out and do a few weeks or something like that on the road?
I have. Quite honestly, I haven't tried to do that.
Yeah. Well, you haven't needed to.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, I part of the problem is it's just it's really difficult to get away, and to take your eye off the ball it's not going to end well. So
yeah.
But the good news is, since I've been on board, I've been able to actually add to my team key support members that have taken over responsibilities that really evolved.
Yeah.
And, the OLE RED properties, for instance, started out just as Shamingo, but then it grew and grew and grew, and it's going to continue to grow. Yeah. So I added a production manager to oversee that, and other new developments, and, and other roles have evolved over time and grown. So, in that sense, I try to delegate. I can't micromanage this.
Right. Exactly.
It's too much. So
you put somebody you trust in those positions.
Yeah. And like Les Banks at the Ryman, he's been around for 25 years or 26 years.
Yeah.
He's the production. You've dealt with Les many times,
absolutely.
I'm sure, as many of
I got to get him in
you
here.
all have. But Les mentioned that, by the way. He said your email went to junk mail. So that was his caveat. But he said, definitely he'll follow up with you. But Les is awesome. I mean, he's got his own style of advancing. Some people, have occasional trouble, but with, they don't, it's just that they're not sure what they're getting into, but Les has an amazing way of delivering the message, which is everything's going to be okay. Yeah. You're going to be taken care of, and I'm going to explain to you why. Yeah. And so if you come in guns a-blazing with your 14 semis and you're looking for the loading dock, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. But Les is great about talking.
He's great about adapting because he knows both worlds. He knows what all those, what those huge productions are like and how to make it work in that venue.
Yeah. And we've seen a lot of, now with COVID especially, we've had a lot more demand for video. So on the video capture side, streaming, we've actually launched a pay-per-view series. Okay. That's become sort of a benchmark now. So about 2 years ago, I had put in capital request to add a video system at the Ryman.
Yeah.
And so I sacrificed my little office there and made it into a little video control room. And so we now have that
Awesome.
to operate. But we don't have much of a projection system now, but we do have the means with the cameras and the record decks, and of course we've got the broadcast audio console room. We've still got a Harrison Tryon in there, still kicking. But it's good to see all that evolution take place, and I'm really proud of everything that the folks at the Ryman have done to support me, and my team there is just knocks it out of the park every day. You know, I mean, I know it sounds like I'm tooting my own horn here, but those guys are amazing, and girls. Carly Hennigan, stage manager, Brandon Webbs, LD. I mean, just top
I
of the
can
heap.
vouch for it. I can vouch for it, and it's consistent, and it's just you can count on it, and it's the best. Well, we're rounding the corner to get you back to the Opry House. I was talking about you doing any sort of road work. Do you miss riding the bus?
I miss being out on the road for sure. Yeah, I miss it. What I don't miss is the bus breaking down. You know.
Yeah.
And they do break down.
Oh, they do. They're machines, mechanical like anything else. That's part of our what can go wrong thing. You have to have that on the list.
Yeah.
And how you're going to get out of it.
Some of my most favorite stories involve buses breaking down. You know, they all do. You look back on it and you're like, well, that was a cool story.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, I miss it. That's part of why we're doing this way, because when we got shut down in March, I said I got to figure out a way to get back on a bus.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you did this. This is great.
Oh,
I think it's going to be kind of cathartic for people. Hopefully,
I hope so. Do you have any animals?
I do. I have 2 little puppies. I call them puppies. They're 14-year-old brother and sister Karen Terriers.
Oh wow. Those are old puppies.
Oh yeah, but they still think they're puppies, and they're still kicking.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
Yeah, I love dogs.
Well, Jeff, really appreciate you doing this. I wanted to make sure that you got time to talk about how you got here and everything that you've done. It's inspiring.
Thank you.
There's a lot of people outside the business that are trying to figure out where to start, and I always, suggest a lot of the things that you and I both did is get out there wherever there's a truck or there's somebody putting together something for a stage or whatever it is, and you start looking around, and like when you saw the orchestration of the stage manager, the guys loading trucks and all those sort of things, that's when you can start watching how things go together and figuring out where your place is. I mean, I think there's a lot of new people. I suggest if they want to go out and sell merchandise, you can do that job, and you can watch everybody else and figure out where you might fit in or work up to that place that you want to be at.
Absolutely. So. And to that end, Don, I think another thing I would add is as you're gathering this experience and you get out there in it, your focus is going to intensify. You know, you're going to be more clear about what direction you want to take. Because looking back in retrospect, I probably would have not enjoyed studio engineering.
Right.
And I say that because it's very meticulous, repetitive, and what if you don't like the artist or the song?
Yeah.
You know, then you're stuck there for weeks or whatever, listening to the same song. Anyhow, I'm very fortunate, but the main thing is I focused on one thing.
Yeah.
And I would encourage anyone who wants to get into this business, focus on one thing, you know, and just do it and do whatever it takes to learn, to educate yourself, because as one of my mentors said, and it was probably the best advice he ever gave me, when I was trying to explain something to him about why something didn't work, and he stopped me. He goes, "How about?" He goes, "Hold on. First of all, you don't know shit." Okay, so that's kind of like a cold splash of water, but it was a good. Yeah, it's like a wake up call. Like, okay, well, I really should pay attention here, and it's true. You know, even when I think I do know what I'm doing now, I realize I'm probably missing a few things. So I've never ever gone beyond that to realize, okay, I've done everything I needed to do. I'm an expert here. No, and going back to audio,
Yeah.
there's one more thing. I always had this attitude with audio, and I still do to this day, which is, if you're not starting from scratch,
Yeah.
you're not adding every little thing you could.
Right. Exactly.
If you assume something,
Right.
if you start with a curve on a room, there's going to be common denominators in the components if you're using the same PA, but the room's different. And, everything's different. It's all interactive. So why not do the best you can every time?
Yeah.
Why not walk away and say, I milked every little ounce of quality out of that system, and there wasn't a damn thing I could have done better.
Right.
You walk away. And that's really, to me, that's what it is a self-fulfilling sense of pride in what you've done.
Yeah.
And so that's really, to me, what the focus could be, for a young person getting into this thing. Get that focus, and then learn to get that moment where you can have pride in what you've done.
Well, and that one job that you focus on too can always lead to a lot of other things.
Absolutely.
And,
You never know where it's
Yeah.
gonna turn, and
Absolutely.
even though, I never get behind a console anymore. I
Yeah.
still think
Yeah.
audio,
Yeah.
but my audio team is so much better than I am. They could run circles around me all
Yeah.
the time. So I love hearing what they do and how they do it, but I never ever would say, hey, you need to, they've trumped me well beyond my abilities, but that's kind of what I expect out of them.
Yeah.
That's what they're there for.
Yeah.
It's not a competition.
Well,
we're all here on the same mission.
Well, but and you're able to do that job from that supervisory position because you know all the nuts and bolts of what they're doing already.
I would hope. There are some things that I miss all the time, but I try.
Yeah.
I try to be sensitive.
But
to
it's
that,
all your background that's come together to put you in this position now.
Yeah, I aspire to that. And that's one of my concerns regularly, Don. Quite honestly, is I feel like a lot of times I'll just get stretched so thin that I'm not able to dedicate that focus and that attentiveness to, what's going on stage now, or what,
That's the challenge.
what's happening with the lighting. I don't, you can't be everywhere at the same time. But believe me, I feel this sense of duty to do that, and this need, and that at times is a dilemma for me, honestly. But I'm really fortunate to get folks like yourself, really talented peers and people who are legends in the industry come through, and every now and then I'll get to brush shoulders with these people, and that's what I really love.
Yeah.
To have the ACM folks here, that was like, wow, the A team of broadcast was here, and just to see how they operate, and what a humbling and wonderful experience it was, to have them in our facility.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a win-win, and I love those experiences. Some of I did some. As you mentioned, I was tour managing for Alan Jackson at one point. John Garriott was production manager.
Yeah.
John, I mean, how much better can you get than John Garriott?
I mean, absolutely.
Just, he was so welcoming to me and so helpful that, he made it a great experience for me. And, and it's those interpersonal moments that I value.
Absolutely.
You're dealing with professionals, and you're so fortunate.
Absolutely.
So I'm fortunate every day.
Well, it's been awesome, very inspiring. Thanks so much for doing this, Jeff.
Thank you, Don. It's a pleasure.
Same
You should
here.
come by more often.
Okay.
But you got to wear a mask.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Take care. Great job.
Thanks so much for watching. Let us know what you thought by leaving us a comment. You can also follow us on these social networks. And if you want to see more, please like, share, and subscribe.